The house was alive with energy, laughter bouncing off the walls, glasses clinking in rhythm with idle chatter. The music was just loud enough to blur the edges of conversation, the air thick with the scent of top-shelf whiskey and expensive cologne. It was the kind of night where the world outside didn't exist, where everyone pretended their lives were as perfect as the image they projected. I had just topped off my drink, indulging in the facade, when her voice cut through the noise like a razor to the skin. "I hate you." The room froze mid-breath. Conversations halted, laughter died, and every eye in the room turned toward us. My fingers tightened around my glass, the condensation slipping beneath my grip. I stared at my wife, my mind scrambling for an explanation that wouldn't come. Emma stood in the center of the room, cheeks flushed, not from the alcohol, but from something deeper. Anger, frustration, maybe guilt. For a moment, I was paralyzed, pinned under the weight of those words. It wasn't just a venom in them. It was the way she spat them, like they had been sitting on her tongue for months, waiting for the perfect moment to be unleashed. And she had chosen now. Here, in front of our friends, colleagues, acquaintances. The silence stretched, unbearable and thick. Someone coughed. A glass clinked against the marble countertop. A murmur of confusion rippled through the crowd, but no one spoke. They were waiting to see what I would do, what she would do next. My heartbeat was a dull roar in my ears, but outwardly, I forced myself to remain still, composed, calculated. I studied her hands clenched into fists, her breathing uneven. I knew that expression. I had seen it before, late at night after too many drinks, during fights we never finished, in moments where her mask slipped just enough for me to glimpse something ugly beneath. But this wasn't just a drunken outburst. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment argument. She wanted this. She wanted everyone to see. Slowly, I set my glass down on the bar. The sound of it meeting the surface was deafening in the silence. I met her gaze one last time, then turned on my heel and walked straight out the front door. The cool night air hit me like a slap, but it wasn't enough to clear the chaos in my mind. My hands were shaking, not from anger. No, I was past that. This was something colder, something worse. Betrayal. Behind me, the party stirred back to life. Hushed whispers filled the space I had left behind. Emma's words still echoed in my head. "I hate you." It wasn't random. It wasn't a slip of the tongue. And it sure as hell wasn't just about me. I had suspected for months. Now I knew. I kept walking. The city streets stretched ahead of me, dimly lit by street lamps and the neon flickers of signs from late-night diners. I didn't have a destination in mind. I just needed to move, to get away from the suffocating heat of that room, from the judging eyes, from her. Emma and I had been married for 6 years. 4 or 5 of those years, I had believed we were happy. I had built my life around her, sacrificed time, energy, hell, even friendships, to make our relationship work. And now all I could think about was the way she had looked at me when she said those words. Not with anger, not with heartbreak, with contempt. That wasn't something that happened overnight. No, that kind of resentment festered. It grew in the dark, fed by secrets and lies. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, my thumb hovering over the screen. I could have called her, demanded an explanation, confronted her right then and there. But what was the point? I already knew. It started with the small things, the late nights at work, the way she suddenly started caring more about how she looked again. Her phone, always face down on the table, the vague excuses. And then there was him. Nathan. The name alone made my jaw tighten. Nathan was a businessman, successful, charismatic, the kind of guy who walked into a room and made everyone feel like they were lucky to be in his presence. He had always been around, hovering, just close enough to seem harmless. But I had seen the way he looked at Emma when he thought I wasn't paying attention. And worse, I had seen the way she looked back. I wasn't stupid. I did what any man would do when he started to suspect his wife was lying to him. I looked for answers, and I found them. A message thread, deleted but recovered, late-night texts, a charge on our joint credit card for a hotel I had never set foot in. Proof. And yet, I hadn't confronted her. Not yet, because I needed more. I needed to be absolutely sure. Because once I crossed that line, once I said the words out loud, there was no going back. Now, standing on a sidewalk in the middle of the night, I realized I had been waiting for the perfect moment to strike, the perfect excuse. Emma had just given it to me. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I checked into a hotel downtown, somewhere anonymous. I didn't trust myself to walk through our front door, to see her, to hear whatever excuse she would try to spin. She didn't call me. Not once. And that silence told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't just a mistake. This was a choice. And soon, she was going to understand exactly what it meant to cross me. Because I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to destroy her. I woke up in a dimly lit hotel room, the scent of stale coffee and detergent filling the air. The sheets were rough, unfamiliar, but that was the least of my problems. My head pounded, not from alcohol, but from the sheer weight of it all. Last night had been the final nail in a coffin that had been slowly building for months. Emma had laid it all out for me in 6 gut-punching words. I hate you. I sat up, rubbed my temples, and reached for my phone. No missed calls. No messages. The silence was deafening, but not surprising. Emma had always been cold when it suited her, but this was different. She wasn't scrambling to explain, wasn't rushing to do damage control. That meant one thing. She thought she had already won. I let out a slow breath, my mind shifting from grief to something sharper. She had underestimated me. By the time the sun crawled its way over the city skyline, my plan was in motion. First, I gathered everything I had, messages, transactions, timestamps. Every breadcrumb Emma and Nathan had left behind, every lie she had fed me while sleeping in my bed. I'd spent the last few weeks collecting pieces, but now I needed to assemble the puzzle. Her infidelity was one thing, but the money, that was something else entirely. Emma had been moving money, not in the usual way. No hidden credit cards or secret Venmo transactions. This was sophisticated, deliberate. Bank statements that didn't match. Wire transfers disguised as business expenses. Funds funneling into accounts that weren't hers, but were under her control. And Nathan? He was right in the middle of it. I had suspected she was planning for a divorce, maybe squirreling away cash, so she could leave cleanly. But this was fraud. And now, it was going to be her downfall. I took my time, making sure every document, every transaction was accounted for. I compiled a digital folder, neatly labeled, time-stamped, undeniable. Then I made copies, several, because when I burned Emma's life to the ground, I wanted to make sure she couldn't sweep the ashes under the rug. Next, the emails. I started with her company. A simple, anonymous tip to HR, complete with attachments. Unauthorized financial activity, linked directly to Emma's account. Just enough to raise questions, just enough to make them start digging. Then, Nathan's business rivals. A few carefully placed leaks, a document or two landing in the inboxes of the right people. Nathan had made enemies in his climb to the top. He had stepped on too many fingers, and now they'd finally have something to use against him. And finally, the SEC, a formal complaint. With everything in motion, I sat back, my fingers drumming against the cheap wooden desk in my hotel room. I imagined the chain reaction, the slow collapse of everything Emma had built. By noon, she would get the first call. By nightfall, her world would be on fire. I checked out a hotel and headed to a small coffee shop across town, sipping a black coffee as the hours passed. I didn't need to be anywhere specific to enjoy the chaos I had just unleashed. It was already happening. At 12:37 p.m., my phone vibrated. A text from Emma. "Where are you? We need to talk." I smirked. She was starting to sweat. I let her wait. An hour passed. Then another. The next text came at 2:06 p.m. "Michael, answer me." Still, I said nothing. Let her twist in the wind a little longer. By 3:45 p.m., my phone rang. I let it ring 3 times before answering. "Michael," she started, her voice sharp, but laced with something else. Panic. "Where the hell are you?" "Out," I said simply. You just walked out of the party last night and disappeared? She snapped. Do you have any idea how that made me look? I almost laughed. Of course. That was what she cared about. Her image, not the wreckage she had left behind. Emma, I said, my voice calm, controlled. You should really be worrying about other things right now. There was a pause. A shift. I could hear the wheels turning in her head. What does that mean? She asked slowly. It means, I said, leaning back in my chair, that I know. Silence. Then a shaky breath. Michael, listen. You don't get to explain. I cut in. You don't get to twist this into something it's not. I know, Emma. About you. About Nathan. About the money. Her breath hitched. I have everything, I continued. Every text. Every bank statement. Every forged document. And as of this morning, so do a lot of other people. Another silence. Then, barely above a whisper. What did you do? I smiled. You'll find out soon enough. And then, before she could respond, I hung up. Emma had spent months keeping secrets. Now, it was her turn to be in the dark. Emma always prided herself on control. She believed she was always one step ahead, the smartest person in any room. But the thing about control is an illusion. And now, hers was unraveling in real time. I stayed off the radar for the next 24 hours, watching the first dominoes fall from a distance. It started small, an email flag at her firm, a question from HR, a request for a routine audit. By lunchtime, the whispers had begun, the ones that traveled through corporate hallways like wildfire. At exactly 1:15 p.m., my phone buzzed again. We need to talk. Now, I let her sit with it, gave her time to stew, to let the weight of uncertainty drag her down. She called at 2 p.m. this time. I answered on the last ring. Michael, she said, voice tight, what the hell did you do? I think the better question is, what did you do? I leaned back, enjoying the silence that followed. You should be getting some interesting emails right about now. You had no right. I had every right. I cut in. You stole from me, Emma. You lied to me. You slept with a man who's about to lose everything. Now you get to lose, too. Her breath was uneven. I could almost picture her pacing, raking her fingers through her hair, trying to find an angle, a way to manipulate me. But there wasn't one. Michael, please. You don't understand what's happening, she started, her voice shifting, softening. Wrong move. I understand perfectly. Another pause, and then her voice hardened. Nathan isn't just going to sit back and let this happen. A smirk tugged at my lips. Good. Then maybe he'll finally get a taste of what it's like to lose. The call disconnected. Emma had hung up first, a sign of weakness. By 4:30 p.m., the second wave hit. Nathan's firm was named in an SEC inquiry. His business partners were scrambling for distance, and I had a front row seat. The financial blogs caught wind of the brewing scandal. It started as a whisper, but within hours it spread like a virus. Executive faces allegations of financial misconduct. At 6:12 p.m., Emma called again. This time, I let it go to voicemail. At 6:30 p.m., another text. You don't know what you've done. By 8 p.m., she was at the house. I knew she would come. She was desperate now. The confident, put-together woman who once looked at me like I was nothing more than an obstacle in her life was gone. When I opened the door, Emma stood there looking like a ghost of herself. Smudged makeup, hair disheveled, the expensive dress she wore to the party now wrinkled, like she'd been sitting in her car for hours, debating whether or not to face me. Michael, she breathed, please. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. You have 5 minutes. She swallowed hard, stepping inside. She didn't speak at first, just ran a shaking hand through her hair. I don't know what you sent, but my boss, he thinks I was involved in some kind of financial misconduct. I raised an eyebrow. You were involved, Emma. Her eyes were wide, desperate. No, it wasn't what you think. Nathan. Stop, I said flatly. Don't lie to me. Not now. Her shoulders slumped. For the first time, she didn't have a defense. No excuses. No carefully crafted manipulation. She knew she was caught. I took a slow step toward her. You spent months lying to my face. You threw away our marriage. And now you wanted to what? Save you. Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't mean for this to happen. I got in too deep, and I didn't know how to get out. I scoffed. You knew exactly what you were doing. Silence stretched between us. Emma wiped at her eyes, her breath shaky. What do you want, Michael? Revenge. I tilted my head. I already have it. She flinched like I had hit her. And maybe I had, just not in the way she expected. You should start packing, I said, my voice calm. By the end of the week, you won't be living here anymore. Her lip trembled. Michael, please. I lost everything. I smiled. Yeah, you did. And then I turned, walking away as she collapsed onto the couch in a heap of silent sobs. Tomorrow, everything she built would crumble, and I would be there to watch it burn. Emma's world was imploding, and there wasn't a damn thing she could do to stop it. By the next morning, the fallout was undeniable. Her name was splattered across the financial news, linked to Nathan's crimes, her credibility in shambles. The SEC was officially investigating, and rumors of potential indictments were swirling. Her phone was probably burning a hole in her hand from all the desperate calls she was making. To lawyers, to old allies, to anyone who could pull her out of the wreckage. But I knew the truth. There was no way out of this. At noon, I received an email from my lawyer. The divorce papers had been drafted, airtight and brutal. Emma wasn't just losing me. She was losing everything. The house, the assets, even the car she loved so much. I made sure she walked away with nothing but the weight of her own failures. And I wanted her to feel every second of it. At 3 p.m., Nathan was arrested. I watched it happen live on the news. The cameras caught him outside his office, flanked by federal agents, his normally smug face locked in a tight, expressionless mask. He didn't fight, didn't resist, just walked straight into the black SUV, knowing his empire was dust. The reporters were already spinning their stories. High-profile investor taken down in fraud scandal. Money laundering scheme exposed. Who else was involved? And right there, buried in the subheadings, was her name. Emma Carter. The woman who knew too much. By 5 p.m., she was at my door again. I wasn't surprised this time. I had been waiting for it, knowing this was a part where desperation kicked in. When people like her, people who believed they could always talk their way out of anything, realized they had no more cards to play. I opened the door slowly, let her see just how unaffected I was. She, on the other hand, was a wreck. Her clothes were wrinkled, her hair a mess, and her eyes, God, her eyes? Hollow. Michael, she said, barely a whisper. Please. I let the silence stretch between us before I finally spoke. For what? She swallowed, and for the first time, I saw something new in her. Not arrogance, not defiance, just fear. You don't understand, she said, voice shaking. Nathan, he's not going to take the fall alone. I smirked. Oh, I know. Her breath hitched. Michael, he has people. Real people. If he thinks I gave them anything. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. That sounded like a you problem. Tears welled up in her eyes. But I didn't care. Not anymore. I have nowhere to go, she whispered. Please. I don't need much. Just a place to figure things out. I tilted my head. You think after everything you've done, I let you back in? Her lips trembled. I made a mistake. I laughed, an actual full-bodied laugh. No, Emma, you made a choice, and now you're living with it. She let out a shaky breath. Michael, But I didn't let her finish. I took a step back and shut the door in her face. She didn't knock again, didn't scream or beg. She just stood there for a long moment, then turned and walked away. By midnight, Nathan had flipped. Reports surfaced that he was cooperating, giving up names, handing over evidence to cut his sentence. It didn't take a genius to figure out Emma was one of the names he had given them. By morning, she had officially disappeared from the public eye. No job, no contacts, no safety net, Just silence. I sat back in my chair, sipping a glass of whiskey as the final remnants of her world crumbled. For months, she and Nathan had believed they were untouchable, that they could lie, steal, manipulate, and never face the consequences. But in the end, I was the one who walked away unscathed. And I never looked back.